Hello, welcome to my video. So this is the second video on a series of videos to basically solve a manufacturing uh, problem using a program. Please, if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, like my video. So manufacturing, there's a process called ECR. It's an engineering change request. So this process documents a change in a part. Let's say that a part uh, uh, dimension or a maybe a color of a material. So this documentation used to be done through paperwork. Now it's done through computer. So what's documented is the description of the change, the dates, start and end dates of the ECR, the assembly that it goes into, and some other basic information. This information, um, let's say that we want to know whether an assembly that has been shipped to the customer, or how many assemblies have been shipped to the customer with a certain part change. So we know the ECR number that covers that change. This can be done using a program called Django. Django is a free free source web-based framework that it's a server user type program, so it's much like SQL, and that allows the user to access information from that we need from a database. So the way to solve this problem would be to create what's called an app where the user would input the ECR number, and the ECR number would be stored uh, in a variable, and then an algorithm would fetch the uh, ECR. Using this ECR number, it would fetch um, the start and end dates of the ECR, the assembly that the part goes into, and then it would, with that information, it would fetch the uh, the quantity of assemblies that were shipped from um, the database for the shipped assemblies. So okay, so let's get started. Okay, so now for this I used uh, Visual Studio. So here I have my project I already created, and I already have all my files for the project. I have what I created was called an app. So the first thing I do is basically assign a part of the database um, to the tables, to a section of the database for my purpose. In other words, to create this ECR and the shipped assemblies, what's called tables. These are called tables that I create. So here's where I create my tables. It's in the models file. So the first thing I have is I have my imports. So my imports from Django, my modules that I import are models, the models module, and then I import abstract user. So abstract user is uh, it I pass information about a user, and it creates abstract user object. So I write here pass, and then I have the next thing is my first. This is my first table. So it's called ECR table models.model, and I have all these are fields that are uh, part of the basically define the table. These are the fields in the table. So the first is ECR models car field. So this is a string type variable with a default value and a maximum length. Then part number models that car field. So it's a string type variable with a maximum length. Assembly part number, it's a string type variable with a default part number and maximum length. Date started and date ended, these are date type fields. Description, it's a string type variable with a default value and a maximum length. Reason for change, this is a string type variable with a default value and a maximum length. Temporary change, it's a Boolean field. So this is going to be a box that I'm going to click. It's going to be the true or false. Part number changed is also Boolean, true or false. And then I have this piece of code, which is basically it assigns a variable name to this table. This is my second table, which is assembly shipments. So this is the name of the table, and have three fields: assembly part number, which is a string type variable with a default value and a length, a maximum length. Date shipped is a date type variable, and quantity shipped is a date well, it's an integer type variable. And then I have the same piece of code basically assigns a string variable to this table. This is for easy for the administrator to easily recognize this table. It basically gives it an identifier. Okay, so I have my tables, and now what I do is I need to, every time I make a change to the table, I need to basically update the database, and I do this by going into the uh, Visual Studio terminal and typing manage.py create super user, and this will create a user object for the administrator uh, that is going to give me, where I will create a username, a password, and an email address. I already created mine. Okay, and also I need to uh, create a, well, I need to update the database by using this command make migrations. So I go into the terminal and I type uh, python manage.py make migration, and this command is going to update the database with my models that I created. So I have now my tables, and it already created them, and as an administrator I already have my login information. I can access it, so I'm going to go ahead and access it. So I type um, run server manage.py run server. Let's see. Okay, so now I have, okay, now I have so my page uh, is this is the page that was created by Django, which I already created the two tables, ECR tables and assembly shipments. So if I look at ECR tables, I have my table and I have all the fields are already uh, populated. I have a ECR number, part number, assembly part number, date started, date ended, description, reason for change, and then the booleans temporary change or part drawing changed. Okay, so now I have my other table, assembly shipments. So I have, these are all the entries that I've created. These are assembly part numbers. So for this one, for example, I have assembly number, part number, date shipped, and quantity shipped, and I have the same for all these. Okay, so now I can close, and then I create my URLs. So I have already created, have my imports, and I already created, I have my two paths and URL patterns. I have one for the administrator and one with this admin site URLs, which is the well, the function that's needed in order to create this URL. And then I have the homepage. This is the homepage at the base of the tree, which is colon, which is the first page that you will see in the website as you access the website. Is called homepage. Okay, I'm gonna go now to the uh, my templates. So I created a template, which is I create a base and a home page. So the base goes before the home page, and so I have everything that is inside of curly brackets and percentage is Python code. So I have load static. It loads all my CSS pages, dog type HTML, and then HTML head, meta. These are the HTML tags. So these are all HTML code, and it will define how the page will display the order of the objects in the page. So meta charset UTF-8 is it makes sure that my input value will be encrypted in order to be sent to the server. Then title, this is the title of the page. So it's between block main content, and block, and it's called retrieve quantity of assemblies shipped during assembly. It's beside title text, link, style sheet. So href, static, SS, ECRs, layout, CSS. So this links the CSS page to this HTML page. And then close the head, body, and then div class site container. So this CSS object defines how the site container of the page will appear and the size of it. And then h2 blog title, this is the title that is going to be displayed in the page. First thing, retrieve quantity of assemblies shipped during ECR, end block, and then a paragraph, block my content, end block. So that part, everything that is inside between this block my content and end block my content will be appear in this order. And then close the paragraph, close div, close the body, close HTML. Then I go to my home page, and then extends ECR based HTML. So this follows. This will be this is an extension of my base sheet. So load static, it will load the static files, block my content. This they have the form. I have a form, action apostrophe method post. So post is a method chosen because we have a submit button. ID is an input form. That's the name of the form. CSRF token, and this is a loop that will handle errors. So form non-field errors and form field inform for form field inform, and then field label tag field.label tag field errors. These will raise the error messages, detect and raise error messages for the form, and and then a break, and input type submit. It's a submit type because we have a submit button. Name submit class. This is the CSS object that will handle the appearance and the size of the button, and then value submit. So when I click, when the user clicks submit, uh, it will have a value of submit. Then break, h shipped quantity h. So the shipped quantity will, this is the output part of the page. So it will show this shipped quantity, and then div class output box. This will show a box, and inside of the box it will show the value inside of shipped quantity variable. Okay, and then end block. Okay, so now I will show my CSS, and my CSS is for the site container. These are all the attributes: padding top, padding bottom, padding left. These are padding top is the padding on the top, padding bottom, padding left and right, margin, size, background color, width, and button CSS. This is my button. So these are my this is my class container. This is my button button CSS, and background color, border style, solid color, padding, text align, text decoration. So these are all the attributes for the appearance of the button CSS, the button. And then the output box, I have the output box is right here. So output box, the appearance of the output box is defined also here. So background color, border style, color, text align, decoration, display, margin, width, height, border color. Okay, so now I will go to forms, and on forms I have, so I import from Django input forms, class input forms. So the name of the form is input form, and these are error class, error CSS class. These are the errors messages that will be raised if there is an error on the form. ECR number, this is the variable that stores the input value, and it's type string, and it has 100 in length, characters in length. And this is the error message: require, please enter SCR number. And then I have my views. So this is the views is the file that basically the code that has all the the action for the page. So it is the code that will receive the request and then take the input, store it in the database, and it's going to use an algorithm and then render the page with the output. So I have all my imports here. So import Django errors. This module handles the errors. Template, the templates. Render, this is the to render the page. HTTP response, HTTP response redirect and request. These are this creates an object every time uh, there's a request. This object is by the view, and then redirect, it will redirect the page if needed. And then CSRF for cross forgery protection, um, and then same thing for CSRF exempt. Context loader will handle the context. It will load the context into the template before rendering, and then uh, template, and then to create a template to handle the templates, and then request context, input form. This is our form. ECR table. This is our table. Assembly shipments. This is our shipments assembly, and then models. These are our models. A models module. Datetime and datetime module converts basically a set of numbers into a datetime variable, and then from datetime import date. This one is a part of the datetime module, um, and then import subprocess. Okay, so all these are needed, and then so I created my function homepage request. So ship quantity is, I initialize it with a value, a string, and then if request method is get form, it assigns a variable to the input form. If request method is post, it 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 basically stores a string into the ECR number variable to initialize it. Method is post because the input value is gonna change the database. So form, so input form request post, it will create it will create a it will save the form as a variable named form. If form is valid, so it basically cleans the form input uh, to make sure that the input is valid. So request post get ECR number, so it stores the input value into the variable ECR, and then quantity, I initialize all these variables before the algorithm that I will use later. So quantity is 0, quantity is 0. Well, QTY is 0, quantity is 0. Assembly, uh, I give it a value, a string. Date time, date start, I give it a value, and date end, I give it a value. And then for P in, I start my algorithm. This is the algorithm that I need in order to provide my output. So this is a loop for P in ECR table objects raw select from ECR tables ECR table. So what this does basically is goes into through a loop into every row of the ECR's table, and it fetches uh, three pieces of data in the assembly column, date start and date end, at the in the in the ECR that was input as an input value. So it it stores this in this it stores those three pieces of data in these variables, and then it goes through another loop on the assembly shipments table, and then it uses those pieces of information to basically fetch the quantity. It fetches the assembly that corresponds to that assembly part number, and it checks whether the date started and the assembly was has a date that is inside of the date start and the date end. So date is p dot date shipped. It stores the date, and then if assembly so if date is greater than date start, and then so it stores the if this is true, if the date is inside of the date these two dates, then it will save the quantity to a variable named quantity. And since it's going through a loop, it will go through all the assemblies that um, correspond to to that criteria, and it will add it up. And then elif date start, if so this first part is if the date is inside is if the date is inside of these two dates, and this part is if the date is equal to date start, it will do the same, and if the date is equal to date end, it will do the same. So once it has added the quantity in all the assemblies, it stores this in a shipped quantity, and then the last thing it does is it renders the page with the context of the shipped quantity that we just calculated. So return render request ACR homepage form shipped quantity. Okay, let's see how that works. So let's see. Okay, so let's see how that works. So I go to so I type run server. I run the run server command. Okay, and then okay, so now this is my page. So this is one of the ECRs that I have already created. It's a 3025. So I click submit and I get the number 39. Okay, so 39 is the quantity the number of assemblies that were shipped. So I'm gonna check it. So I will go to let's see, I'll go to the administrator page, and on the administrator page I will go to ECR tables. This is 3025, and on 3025 the date start is 11:30, and then the date end is 12:14. Okay, so now I check the assembly part number is 2030 1015. So I go to my assemblies. So let's see. Okay, so I go to I have 3/2060/001. So I check the date of the first one, and it's inside, so that I take, that's 15. So I take 15, and then the second one is 12, so 15 plus 12 is 27, and the third one is 12, which is 39, and that's exactly what I got here. So I go back, and it was yeah, 39, so that is correct. Okay, so if, hopefully you like this video. See you next time.